welcome to another episode of The Bottom Line. I'm your host, Lauren Kalil. Our show is brought to you by Whoop. Start tracking your strain, recovery, and sleep scores with Whoop, and even get an extra month's membership and a free 4.0 strap when you sign up with the link in our description. If you like listening to us chat about CrossFit news and everything that's going on in the sport, make sure to like and subscribe. We are continuing our coverage of first takes of the semifinals. We have our sports analysts, Brian Friend and Patrick Clark here. We are moving on to the last semifinal of the first weekend, the Torian Pro. Big storyline here. Only 3 spots that qualify. How do you even decide who is going to get those tickets?
Well, it's actually only 2 spots. Especially on the women's side.
You never know. You never know, but you know.
Yeah.
All right. Let's start with the women's side then. Obviously, the first person who we see on this list is Tia-Clair Toomey. We know that 99.999% she's going to the games unless something crazy happens. So only 2 more qualifying spots.
Yeah. What an awesome picture. Man, whoever took that's a genius.
Whoever made this graphic is amazing.
Probably too. That yeah. Give that guy a raise. This again, you brought it up 3 spots, but in actuality it's only 2. But I think the biggest storyline, I wrote about it earlier, is Tia returning home. And it's been over 3 years since she's competed on the floor in Australia, her homeland. So and the last time she did was actually in basically an exhibition at the Torian Pro in Pat Rafter Arena. So I can't wait to see that. I mean, obviously we know the Australian fans they love to have fun. They're crazy fanatics of the sport, and the Torian, it's a big celebration there. I mean, the games probably could learn from them. I mean, they have fireworks and flames popping up and music going on. I mean, it's a party, and I can't wait to see Tia perform in this.
Brian, what are your initial takes on this stacked field?
Yeah, it's really competitive. And the thing that we kind of know historically about, especially the Australian women at the games, is that they do really well. In the years that Maddie Sturt was able to make it, which was 4 years in a row, she had very respectable finishes there while she was still very young. She was like 19 and 20 years old, and she was finishing like 19th and 21st at the games. And now she's in a situation where it's like nearly impossible for her to get back there. And that's someone who has proven success at that level. But you've got, arguably 2 of the 5 fittest women ever that are still crushing it in Tia and Cara. And, Jamie Simmons is a little bit of a question mark after taking last year off with an injury. But when she's healthy, it's really hard to get past her. And then you have Ellie Turner, who, there's no way that any of those 4 women should not be at the games. And, as much of a crapshoot as the last chance qualifier can potentially be, like whichever one of them misses out is probably a strong pick to win that competition. But it really shouldn't have to be there. And we've written and talked about this before, that based on everything that's happened on the competition floor over the last 5 years, there's no competition. There's no relative competitive statistic that can suggest why they are only getting 3 spots. And it's a loss for the CrossFit Games, and it's a loss for the fans of CrossFit that don't get to see women that are clearly capable of competing at a high level at the games all be there.
Why do you think they haven't added extra spots to qualifying through that semifinal?
No, they've taken them away, and they're just using open registration as the metric,
which is a terrible metric.
But when it comes to a field that's so competitive, why wouldn't they take that into consideration? Like, why wouldn't there be a gray area for that?
Well, I mean, look, the using wanting to have an incentive for open participation is fine and makes sense. Obviously, they want to have a lot of people sign up for the open, and honestly, people, the open is a great thing to participate in, but it shouldn't be the thing that determines a spot at the games.
Yeah.
Because a continent like Oceania and the population that they have there is never going to match the open registration of a continent like North America or Europe. There's just not enough numbers. And if Asia, for whatever reason, does sign up in a million people in Asia register for the open, what are you going to do? Give them half the game spots? Then the game's going to be a joke, because half of those athletes aren't going to be of the caliber that you want to see at the games. So having 1 or 2 people from Asia is fine, because there are 1 or 2 people that can compete there. But if what are you going to do if millions of people sign up from China one year? You're just going to be like, oh no, next year you guys get every game spot.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's why it's obviously a problem and it needs to be addressed.
Yeah, the athletes and the games itself, it's being. I mean, athletes are getting punished for something that's out of their control, and then the games itself it's gonna be diluted because of what Brian says. If a case like that happens, I mean, you obviously have a country like New Zealand and Australia who make up the primary countries of Oceania that are very, very, I guess, very far ahead of most other countries when it comes to CrossFit. They're just limited by their population, but I mean, CrossFit's taught as a for PE in Oceania in Australia. You know, kids are raised on it in CrossFit in that country. Not many countries do that. So it's unfortunate that Oceania is being kind of like punished in a way, you know, but I don't know. It's going to be fun to watch. You know, yeah. If I'm Ellie Turner or Jamie Simmons, there's going to be a little bit more pressure and stress on them, but that might end up making them a better athlete in the long run.
Sure. Okay, let's move on over to the men's field. First take on this stacked field.
I'll go ahead. I mean, obviously, just you have Royce Dunn, who didn't have the best open or quarterfinal appearance, but he didn't do the. I mean, it was kind of the same way last year, and then he came out and pretty much he won the Torian, and then you have two great athletes in Baden Brown, Jay Crouch, who are just they're young, they're like the future of Oceania CrossFit, and then you have some veterans there towards the end, and then obviously there's a name that kind of sticks out in Ricky Gerard. It's going to be interesting to see how he performs in front of that live crowd.
Brian, what are your thoughts?
Once again, we just see a ton of guys here who have proven success at the games. I mean, obviously the 1 year that Ricky went, he did very well and under unfortunate circumstances. But Royce Baden and Jay Crouch all did great last year. The last time Matt McLeod and James Newberry were at the games, they did great. And it would be fun to have one or two more spots open from this semifinal, because all of these guys are different, are good at different things, and depending on what ends up showing up at the games, could have a pretty good run of workouts potentially that could, they're probably not top 5 or maybe even a couple of them are actually probably top 10 threats, but the way that they could impact the competition as a whole at the games would be, influential. And I think it's a loss to have only 3 spots with such a talented field, because we didn't even talk about a guy like Bailey Martin, and there are these Fowler brothers, and there are some women in Marnie Sykes and Madeline Schelling who, if there were 5 spots available, would probably compete as an individual. But because there aren't, and they see that there's just really no hope to break through in the current format as a young athlete in that region right now, that they're just competing on a team, which, it depletes the depth of the field at the semifinal, but it's almost irrelevant because there's so few more, spots available.
Patrick, what's your bottom line for the semifinal Torian Pro?
Get more spots.
Like order.
Get more spots down under. Come on, figure it out. I know, granted, it's been the second year of the new system, and I understand you don't want to make drastic changes like that. So maybe there's hope for the future. Maybe next year they realize hey, we've done this for 2 years. We need to figure this out. Yeah. But yeah.
Brian, what's your bottom line?
Get some more spots.
That this is going to be an exciting semifinal. I mean, with what comes along with a few number of spots and a ton of great athletes is a lot of pressure, like Patrick was talking about, a lot of tension and a lot of drama. And the guys who program down in Torian usually do a really good job of creating a flow for the weekend. Obviously, they have to use a couple workouts from CrossFit, but I think they'll be able to navigate around that and create kind of a story throughout the 3 days of competition that's pretty exciting to follow.
Brian Friend, Patrick Clark, thank you guys for joining us. Again, this will be the 3rd semifinal of the first weekend. We'll continue our coverage throughout the rest of the week.